Welcome back, friends. We are now at the fourth door. Um, Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied, hungering for what is true. As we step through the fourth door of the kingdom, the language of the Beatitude turns decisively toward desire. Poverty of spirit named our dependence. Mourning taught us how consolation is received. Now Christ asks something more searching. What do you actually want? Matthew's choice of words is deliberate. Hunger and thirst are not metaphors for polite interest or moral aspiration. They name a bodily urgency, a need without which life cannot continue. This beatitude therefore describes not a rule to be followed, but a longing that orders everything else. Here, Matthew's theology is essential. As Peter Ellis demonstrates in Matthew, his mind and his message, righteousness in this gospel is never merely private moral correctness. It names fidelity to God's will as revealed and embodied by Jesus, especially within the Sermon on the Mount. The Beatitudes function programmatically. They establish the interior orientation of the disciple before Jesus unfolds specific commands. To hunger for righteousness is a desire, a life brought into living conformity with God's reign, verified not by attention alone, but by hearing and doing the word. This is why Matthew repeatedly pairs righteousness with obedience. Not everyone who calls Jesus Lord enters the kingdom, but the one who does the will of the Father, Matthew 7:21. Desire in Matthew must become enacted truth. The Catechism receives this teaching ecclesially. The Beatitudes depict the countenance of Jesus Christ and portray his charity, and they express the vocation of the faithful by revealing the desires that must be purified and reordered. Again, we're back to paragraph 1717. We've seen this one show up a bit. Hungering for righteousness, then, is not self-driven striving. It is consent to let God reshape what we love so that our desires mirror Christ's own. Jacques Philippe stands firmly within this tradition. He insists that this beatitude is first about conversion, not activism. Before we seek justice outside ourselves, we must allow truth to penetrate illusion within us. Philippe notes that we often want righteousness abstractly while resisting the truth that would reorder our own hearts. The hunger Christ blesses is a hunger to be made right, to be freed from self-deception, and to let God establish his order within us. And yet the promise is gentle. They shall be satisfied. This is not total fulfillment here and now, but sufficiency. God gives enough light for the next step, enough grace for fidelity today. Philippe emphasizes that God feeds desire gradually, deepening it rather than exhausting it, so that the soul learns to live from truth rather than control. This door teaches that holiness begins not with answers, but with an honest hunger, a refusal to settle for substitutes, and a willingness to let God name what is lacking. During Lent, this beatitude invites us to examine what we truly hunger for, not what we say we want, but what our time, attention, and emotional energy reveal. God does not shame disordered desire, he heals it, but only if we allow the truth to surface. As a consideration of action, set aside one quiet moment and ask God a single question without explanation or defense. What do you want me to desire more purely? Do not rush to resolve it. Let the hunger be named.
Yeah, it's when you think about you know, trying to bring things back to the natural order, right? To hunger and thirst. Everyone knows that there are good things to hunger for, that there are good things to thirst for, and that there are also very bad things to hunger for and very bad things to thirst for. And people who have that tendency toward the bad things to hunger and thirst, their body reaps the consequences of that, right? If you drink too much alcohol, you're going to end up with cirrhosis of the liver. If you eat too much food or too much of the inappropriate food, you're going to become obese, right? The body will suffer for the consequences of a wrongly ordered hunger and thirst. And the same thing is true for the spiritual life. And so God does not leave us wondering what we ought to hunger and thirst for. Like a good parent, as a mother or father, would lead their children to train their hunger, to train their thirst for the good things, the things that are going to feed the body well. God does not leave us wondering what it is that we ought to hunger and thirst for. He tells us very clearly that it's righteousness. And then he tells us that if we seek that, we will be satisfied. And like you said, satisfaction is the minimum, right? That's the low bar. It's all that we need. And, but it's enough. It's enough for us to begin to engage the appetite in a rightly ordered manner for our spiritual life. And you made a really good point there, where you said many people don't want to. They have they long for righteousness that is an exterior righteousness to themselves, but they don't want to correct the interior dispositions that will lead to that, right? So righteousness is good for thee, but not for me, right? And people will it will become the intellect either controls the appetite or the appetite will control the intellect, right? The person who becomes addicted to the alcoholic drink, addicted to the food, can no longer make good intellectual choices. And the same thing is going to be true for us in the spiritual life. If we do not hunger for righteousness and we don't seek that out first within ourselves, we will be training ourselves to not find it, right? And you won't get it, or worse yet, because you can't control your own hunger and thirst, you will demand that it be imposed upon you from the exterior.
That is right. So as this door closes, desire has been clarified, but not yet disciplined. The next door will ask, what happens when this desire is placed under gentleness? When strength is no longer asserted, but surrendered. In the next episode, we're going to open the fifth door, meekness, where Matthew's vision of kingship and Philippe's teaching on surrendered strength meet beautifully. Till then, my friends, few days. All right.